Good morning. For you to know, if any of you want to have a business card from me, I have none at the moment. Because I just explained to Shirley on the 30th of June, I retired from all corporate positions I was having. That's it. So now I'm a freelance, enjoying my life. My profession now is spending time with my 5 grandchildren and talking with this distinguished guest of ours. Now, we don't have any specific topic that we want to talk about. It's going to be a free flow discussion, and we'll just go, one topic after the other. And please don't wait for the moderator to say it's time for you to speak and all that. Just make it a casual chat. I would like very much to start with the topic which Pak Budi mentioned to us. We know that we have been reading on the press about how the current administration in Indonesia is really pushing for tourism. They realize that tourism is really the industry for a country like Indonesia. We have all the resources, the people, the destinations, etc., and so on and so forth. So, Pak Budi, when you propose that we talk about these new destinations, let's start with that. I'm sure you have so many questions, and I'm sure so many of our audience also want to know. And the interesting thing, before we, as the players in the market, fully understand the impact, the potential impact of these new destinations, the so-called new Bali. Recently, we heard also about the so-called new capital. So, let's put that in the same context about, what do you see in these so-called new destinations, including the new capital? And I'm sure everybody is curious to know because you're supposed to be the leaders in the industry. And I'm just the guy who asked the question. So please, Pak Budi.
Yeah. Thank you, Pak Amir, and good morning, everyone. So when I was asked regarding the proposed topic, and I thought I will be talking after Pak Hiramsyah. Pak Hiramsyah is representing the Minister of Tourism. So he's here, but now the schedule has been shifted. So we are talking before Pak Hiramsyah. So I apologize for any inconvenience if it may cause. But anyway, regarding the topic, we are at the end of the current administration, and the current administration has been a pro-tourism government. And we are very happy and we are very proud of it and very much confidence about the future. However, and I hope the policy will continue and will be improved in the next 5 years term. But I also noticed that in the investment industry, in investment field, we've been talking about new destinations. Before the current administration, we have been introduced to the 16 tourist destination. Now, in terms of branding, they narrow it down to 10 new Bali, which is very catchy. But the 10 new Bali itself, and then apparently has got challenges. And I truly understand the challenges, and we need to solve the challenges together with the industry and with the investment and with the investors with a lot of confidence. And we noticed from the 10 new Bali, now it has been refocused to 4 priorities, which is Borobudur, Danau Toba, Lombok, and Labuan Bajo. Is it correct, right? So the 4. But then we were informed again that the government is pushing 2 top priorities now, which is Borobudur and Danau Toba, Lake Toba, which is, again, right. What I'm saying is that, look, we are in the investment conference. We're very much confident. We're very much believe in the prospect of the tourism in Indonesia, but we need to draw the line as well, the roadmap. Where do we go from here, from the industry point of view? I mean, from our perspective, from Panorama, of course we are, it's been, to be honest, it's been quiet, quote unquote, the last 2-3 years time in terms of investment. Everybody kind of managing that portfolio. And the last 1 year has been a wait-and-see situation regarding politics, regarding a few things, and now global things. But we are, we are very much confident that starting next year, things will be changing. But again, where do we invest now? I'm eyeing also on opportunities, and also not on the destination, but a lot of supporting issues that support. Not to mention is regarding financing capability. A lot of investment want to come in. I share with my idea is that when you want to propose destination, you need investment. Where does the investment coming from? Local investor or overseas investors? If it's overseas investor, you have to know what kind of investor will be interested to invest in Indonesia. Private equity, look, they are looking at numbers. We better be very, very sure that we are aiming the right figures. If not, and they're aiming big. And are we looking to very big investment? Let's see. Family house, family owned from overseas, it will only happen with family or institution that have special interest or special emotion connection with Indonesia. So that's in terms of foreign investment outlook. But what about domestic? I think the key is in the domestic investment outlook. A lot of Indonesians, a lot of family, a lot of people that have appetite or passion to invest, but they don't know how to invest, number one. So if they want, now they want to know the destination. Now we have this special tourism zone, KEK, right, tourism. That's very positive. That after that, I think, is the financing. Where does the financing coming from? Not everybody will build a $20 million hotel with their own equity. It has to be combined with financing. So now where does the financing coming from? I've been talking to local banks, prominent banks, government banks. They say, we follow the market. We follow business. If there is no business, commercial bank, we're talking about commercial bank. Commercial bank, we only follow the business. If there's no business, we have to follow. We cannot do at the front liner. So I said, look, it has to be something, financing scheme that need to be, quote unquote, kind of sponsored by the government. And I think later on maybe, I know that the government is doing something, but we have not seen enough the speed and everything. I think that may be my concern. So that's investment will come, and everybody's eyeing on investment, but it needs to be supported by a proper and supportive financing scheme. Maybe that's from me.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's so nice to be back here and see all the friends. And thank you, Mana, for organizing this. I'm optimistic on the next 10 Bali. And I like to answer the questions in terms of 3 ways. Why is it so strategic to do the next 10 Bali for Indonesia? And then that determines whether are they going to invest and fulfill some of the promises. The second one is, what are we going to do about it as Rajawali Group? It may give some insights of where to put your money and how to invest. Third is that where I see are the greatest challenges in terms of the next 10 Bali, and how are we navigating these challenges. Indonesia is not a smooth sailing, a walk in the park type of place. Well, strategically, I think some of you may know about Rajawali Foundation has a permanent institute within Harvard Kennedy School, and we work with Indonesian government to sort of like plan, economic development plan. And one of the challenge of Indonesia is to become a high-income country by 2045 or something. So most of the Indonesian jobs are really in construction, made sectors, or agriculture, and wage growth are declining. It's very hard for GDP growth to be sustained to double-digit or higher than 8%, which is a big problem for a demographics, a country of so large a scale. So good jobs can largely only come from 2 or 3 sectors. Manufacturing is one, the wage is increasing. Tourism is the second one. So, if you read the study from World Travel and Tourism Council, you would know that GDP growth for Indonesia tourism last year, 2018, is around 8%. The worldwide average is around 3.6. So Indonesia GDP hovering at 5. So it's a sector that's growing faster. And it has a potential of creating about 500,000 jobs a year if it's going right. So if you're the Indonesian government, what do? You put priorities on tourism because you really want to improve those places outside of Jakarta or Java, which is what Presidential Jokowi is driving. They want more income inequality problem to be solved and growing to the less developed region. So there is a strategic reason why Indonesia has to focus on tourism. And secondly, this is meant to be a joke. We see Vietnam tourism rising very much. We always joke within our company and my colleagues and with the economists that actually Vietnam is more like a socialist country, but they are behaving much more like the capitalists. Indonesia is a capitalist country, demography, but it's very much socialist because everybody loves to share, you know, and everybody loves to welcome people to home. It's a perfect place for tourism, and which we think that that is where government has to put money on in order to grow. So the second question, what is Rajawali doing about it? We haven't announced it, therefore I will share in very general terms. We just closed a $500 million fund, equity, with the sovereign wealth funds looking at next 10 Bali. So we are committed, and we are planning to deploy capital. The fund will take us about 7 years. And obviously, like what Budi say, the IRR is really high, and any one of you know private equity play is very high. So we have to be very strategic in where we deploy the investment. So the challenges I see in next 10 Bali is in terms of where private sector input, and Pahiram Shah knows very much because I work very closely with him. He's from private sector. We have been talking about why certain places doesn't work, some places works better. And the key is really having private sector input early in the master planning, in the airport and the connectivity, in order for a certain government to prioritize their spending. So there could be a mismatch where government could be spending, but that was not what the private sector could put in money immediately to grow that destination. So if you look at competitive index of Indonesia tourism, we are ranked about 42 around world. We used to be at 70, so we are really like climbing quite high up in that. But there's two things that's lacking. Definitely is like connectivity and infrastructures is one, and the quality of the sea and the natural resources are beautiful. And the second challenges is really in the way how tourism can grow sustainably. I think any one of you that have been to many destinations, you see the waste problem, you see the infrastructure and connectivity is a little bit lacking, and then you see the marine issues, so like plastics on the sea and all that. So the question is to really how to actually grow tourism sustainably and for government to invest the infrastructures in the right places where private sector could immediately invest. And then that will create the critical mass of having the momentum kick off within the next 5 years. So I'm a big believer. I hope many of you will be big believer too. And I'm definitely working with about 4 ministries. And you know, in Indonesia, you have to navigate a few at the same time. But Pahiram Shah definitely is, you should hear what he has to say. But to really find the right timing, and the right collaboration framework to actually put our money where we work. And obviously, we've been talking to operators in that sense. Yeah.
Raj?
Let me give you a Marriott perspective. You know, we are not working. Okay. Can you hear me? Yeah. In Indonesia today, we operate about 53 hotels, and we have another 25 under development. We are today present in 6 out of the 10 new Balis. As the market grows, and you just got to take a step back and look at what's going on in the world. Leisure travel is growing 4x that of business travel. Um, Intra-Asia travel is growing at double-digit numbers. There is a real need to create new destinations. Southeast Asia is very well positioned, and particularly Indonesia, when you look at the landscape, the diversity, the beautiful beaches, coral reefs, everything that Indonesia has to offer, it has incredible potential to bring the world to its shores. In next few years, 125 million people from just the 10 ASEAN countries will start crossing borders. We know what's going on with China. It's the biggest outsourced market today with about 120, 130 million. India is coming pretty close behind. So there's lots going on in this part of the world. And I think, again, Indonesia is in incredibly good position to capitalize on this. When we talk about the hotels we are opening, for example, we have currently a Fairfield by Marriott operating in Belitung. Great destination, incredible beaches, and we are about to open a Sheraton hotel, which is going to be spectacular by the end of this year. The demand for the Fairfield is very strong, but we believe that as we open new hotels, as we convince and work with the governments to start getting flight connectivity, you will see the demand grow at a phenomenal pace. So, you know, we are privileged to have great partners like Rajawali that we work with in Indonesia and Southeast Asia, other markets as well. And it really is about a public-private partnership play, where I genuinely see an incredible opportunity. The other thing that, from our perspective, is special, Indonesia has 260 odd million people, and many of them young, coming through the ranks. The potential to develop local talent as we get out to these destinations. And we've been working with the government, working with ASEAN countries to figure out ways how we can move talent between some of these countries. I think there is, for years to come, I believe tourism is a decades-long growth story, and particularly Indonesia is fairly well positioned to optimize on this.
Okay, maybe interesting thing is you mentioned about talent, and I would like to address the next question more to John. Firstly, John, what do you think will be the things that you want to see happen in those new destinations before you go out there and convince your partners or investors to support you going to that direction? Mind you, I'm a veteran of a story back in 1991, which is 28 years ago, after the euphoric success from building the Grand Hyatt Bali. My chairman and I were so adamant that we said to ourselves, we know how to do it, and wherever we go, together with the right operator, we will go laughing all the way to the bank. So I was the one who approached several operators to do a hotel in Jogja, because Jogja was the natural expansion after Bali back in 1991. And I have to say that, this is the good thing about my relationship with the big operators. Some of them are truly becoming my mentor. Out of the 5 operators I approached, 4 came back with me and came back to me and said, "Don't touch Jogja if your expectation is going to be like Bali." First of all, the demographic is different, the length of stay is different, the spending per person is different, etc., and so on and so forth. But coming from the success of the Grand Hyatt Bali, we thought that we are ready to conquer the rest of Indonesia. To make the story short, we built a hotel, and the payback was like 44 years. So, John, in that context. And secondly, Raj just mentioned also about talent. Now, talent is another issue. I remember going to, I was involved with some social political organization until 2009, until I realized that, I'm not a politician. We talked about opening up new cities. We were preparing this so-called strategic paper for that political party in tourism. So people came, to mention about Padang and all these places. And there was this prominent public figure. She came from Padang. She stood up and she was so upset. She said, Padang will never be a tourist destination. So we all look at her and ask, why? And I'm not trying to make any racial comments, but I was really stunned when she said, the people in Padang, they don't have the mentality of servants. But anyway, it goes back to talent. And then when I went to Phuket developing a big project, and at one time I spent nearly 3 years developing a big project, talent was also an issue because the local people of Phuket, they are mostly from the Malay. And they are not different from my long lost cousins in Sumatra. At 3:15, they stop work, they go to the mosque, etc., and so on and so forth. So all the hotels in Phuket have to bring in the talents from the mainland. And eventually it started to create this friction. So number one, John, is about, when do you see is the time for you to start wooing your investors to go into these new destinations, whether they are part of the new Bali or otherwise, but generally speaking, new destinations. And the other one is about talent, how the supply of talent and the retention of talent. And I can talk about talent, for the next 7 days and 7 nights. I've seen people who never touch a luxury hotel become, somebody who is involved as an owner's rep developing luxury hotel. And so,
Well,
John,
for us, currently we have 143 hotels across the archipelago with 11,000 staff. For us, a lot of the destinations they're very interesting, but a lot of them for us are not really geared towards the domestic market, which is this year targeting 275 million domestic tourists. Far outnumbers the international tourists coming in. It was also big, but a lot of the international tourists, because of the way things are set up, will gravitate towards Bali and Jakarta. We ourselves have invested a little bit towards the Tanjung Lesung area in Anyer, but a lot of the time it's not a 300 room or Marriott 5-star hotel that is needed in these destinations for the domestic market. A lot of the time it's the sweet spot usually is a 3-star 100 room hotel. And because of the land in Bali or Indonesia, you can have private beaches, you can have your own stuff, but there's a lot of different issues, of course, when you're dealing in those places. And one of the things that we forecast many years ago was talent acquisition. So one of the things we did years ago was we started with only Indonesian staff, so all the general managers and so forth were all Indonesian. So from the 11,000 staff we currently have in our hotels, all of them are Indonesian. We don't have any expat general managers and so forth. And this is a program we've been running for the last 15 years, basically. And it's quite successful. And one of the things we also did was when we set up the 2-star to 5-star hotels, we set up the system in such a way that the guys could move across from the different brands. So for example, the front office manager in a 4-star hotel could become the hotel manager in a 2-star hotel. But the toolbox available to him, the information, the systems, the SOPs, the P&Ps and so forth were exactly the same, just a little bit more complicated than the 4-star. But when he moved across and started managing the 2-star in a distant destination, they could actually do it. So we open up, on average, say, one hotel every 3 weeks. And when they open up, they all go well because we take basically all the staff from existing hotels and they get transferred, so they get a chance to move across. So one of the biggest problems in hotels, especially in Europe where we started, was succession planning. One of the things we say is like the US Army and the hotel business is the same. If you want to get to the top, don't leave. If you want to become the general manager of an Intercon hotel, start off as a waiter, and 30 years later, you'll probably be the general manager of the hotel. There's loads of hotels like that in the world. The hotel business is kind of funny because a lot of the guys who are running multi-million-dollar businesses don't actually have a degree or an MBA and so forth. They start off as waiters and they move their way up. So if you want to get to the top, don't leave. But what we try and do is try and get the guys moving a little bit more. So 2-3 years in one particular place, and then they get a chance to move. So when the front office manager moves from a 4-star hotel to the 2-star, everybody gets a chance to move up. All the daily workers can get hired as contractors, and so forth. So everybody gets a chance to move around. So for example, from 70 budget hotels we have, all of them came from internal promotions and so forth. So when we're expanding different locations like Jayapura, any kind of these out of the way locations, it's okay for us to open it up. I mean, we don't find that the school system, the hotel system here, is particularly good. So when a lot of the guys come out, they do 3 years in NHI, for example, in Bandung. They expect to be almost, department heads or EAM straight away. But I mean, if you ask them to serve a table or make a cappuccino or it's like, they just don't know.
I know.
You've seen it. They just can't do it. I mean, you have to start off. So we've kind of developed our own internal system where the guys can get up to a certain level pretty quick. So one of the things that allowed us to do is we just took over a 730-key 5-star hotel in Cuba. We work with the Cuban government. And we sent a team of Indonesians over there. 10 Indonesians just went over there last week to do the 2-month kind of takeover process. So we're sending over the Indonesians who 10 or 15 years ago wouldn't have been that good. Now they can go over and they can train 600 Cubans how to run a 5-star hotel. So for us, I'm very proud, like the way we've kind of set that system up, that the guys can go over there and implement all the plans and the systems for a 5-star hotel and work with the Cubans and entertain, European guests, Canadian guests later on. So for us, that was a good step forward. So for us, it's a lot easier when we're expanding or we're doing hotels, and we're more in the mid-range. So when we're doing a hotel in these kind of secondary or tertiary cities, it's not a 200-room, 300-room 5-star hotel. We'd be more like in the 150-key, 100-key 3-star. So they're not as complicated. The services that you need are not as complicated, but it gives the guys a chance to move up, and a lot of the talk for us, I mean, when people come out, oh, we need a new Bali, this, but I mean, why do you need a new Bali? Success can be judged in different ways for the different destinations. I mean, Komodo, maybe you only want 50,000 people going there per year. Maybe that is a success. A success for who? You don't have to have 5 million people going to Komodo. You destroy it. So maybe some of these 10 destinations, they can be successful, but just not in monetary terms. They can be successful for the local community. They can be successful for the 50,000 people who go there, for example. There's different ways of judging success, and you don't want to have like 5 or 6 Balis or Phukets, especially South Bali. There's a big difference for us between South Bali and if you go up to Ubud or Candidasa or Karangasem or Singaraja, Lovina, these kind of places. That's a different kind of Bali. For us, you don't want to create another kind of Bali down here. We have problems with the infrastructure. The traffic is just as bad as Jakarta. The utilities are in bad condition. You want to spread it out away from the south of Bali. But for us, we wouldn't see it any reason to create another Bali in Indonesia. For us, you should create something different, something more specific. There's loads of different types of tourism around. It's for foreigners, it could be Tirtawisata, yeah. Village tourism, where people go to villages and they hang out in the villages. They see the tourism like that. There's big Islamic tourism is becoming bigger and bigger. It's not just like sitting on a beach or shopping and stuff like this. But for us in general, the ideal way, if you're going into these destinations, to find a destination that has more than one thing to offer. So it might have, for example, beautiful beaches or nice mountains or a mosque or something special like that. But there should also be, government offices, for example, a capital city where you also have government business coming in. You can have travelers coming in. You can have people coming back for visiting their towns and stuff like this. There needs to be different layers. It's very difficult just to go into one particular place and say, okay, we're just focusing on people visiting, Komodo, for example. For us, that's very difficult. You need to have more than that.
Now, it brings me to one question then. Let's look at the other side of the coin. What do we see, or what do you guys see about the existing destinations? Bali, for example. Do you still see that, respective, all of you, what do you see in Bali or Jogja or all the existing destinations? Do you see further growth? Or is it going to be, slightly different product to accommodate a different demographic, etc.? Let's talk about the existing destinations. Jakarta, for example, every time I meet a hotel owner in Jakarta, nobody's smiling because rate has been very flat. But does it mean that's the end of new developments in Jakarta, for example? You go to Bandung, John, we talk about Bandung. John gave me a number of new, existing hotels in Bandung, which really, was mind-boggling. It's like hundreds, not to mention Bali, the independent hotels, etc. So come on, from Raj, we go that way. What do you see about this? Do you see the existing destinations still giving opportunity for you to develop new hotels in the next 5, 10 years?
Our existing destinations, particularly Bali, continues to grow fairly strongly. Today we operate 19 hotels in this market, and we'll add another 10 to 12 hotels in the next 2 to 3 years,
Bali.
just in Bali alone.
Wow.
And when you look at Jakarta, it's growing. Surabaya is growing. There are a number of markets across the board that are growing. But for me, there is definitely a need to create new destinations. And that can only be achieved if there is a public-private partnership so that infrastructure goes in at the same time, which is public infrastructure, airports, roads, while private investment goes into building hotels and sustainable businesses. And you don't have to go in with luxury hotels in these places like Belitung or Komodo Islands. We started with a Fairfield, right? In Komodo, we're doing a courtyard, which will open in the next year or so. So I think there is that opportunity because eventually the existing destination, to your point, will become unsustainable. Or you will end up in a situation like places in Europe where they're complaining about over tourism. Right? So I think there is definitely an opportunity. And the three things I would like to highlight, which is something that's changed over time. First and foremost, 10, 15 years ago, if you looked at the businesses, we had predominantly international travelers in our hotels. Today, in most of our hotels, we have 30, 40, 50% locals. That means locals are acquiring wealth. When you create these new destinations, you don't have to just go and push for international traveler to come into the market. It's getting the locals to go and experience these new destinations because you have the infrastructure, they can get there. The second thing, 10, 15 years ago, and many of us are growing in the industry, you only had expats as general managers. Today, most of our general managers in market like Indonesia are Indonesian, right? They are incredibly smart. They're growing at a fast pace. They have access to international learning, and it's part of our responsibility as global brands to be developing great local talent. So I think there is a world of opportunity there that should continue to grow as we get out to these destinations. And finally, as you look at the market, 10, 15 years from now, I think international travel will still be there, but this whole intra-Asia travel and leisure business, particularly when people want to get out, take short breaks, and 3 generations traveling together, will continue to grow. And we need to create products and destinations for these folks to get to. Because today, if we stick to the current, you talk about the traffic jams in Bali's and Jakarta's of the world, it's only going to get worse.
We are running out of time, but let me go back again to this simple question, because I come across this simple question so many times. Take Jakarta, for example. Do you see a city with, such as Jakarta, where you have practically all the foreign brands, all the local brands already embedded, and all the owners are complaining about the flat rate? Do you still see that there will be new hotels in the next 5 to 10 years? All of you, one by one. Raj, start from you again. Do you see there'll be another 5-star or 3-star or whatever?
I think there will be new hotels. Overall, they maybe slow down in the long run, because if Kalimantan comes through, then there is going to be some shift. But Jakarta will remain the business hub for Indonesia and will continue to grow as a destination.
Pak Budi?
Yeah, I look it from two different views.
Existing in city, Pak.
Yeah, it's but two different view. As a hotel operator or as a hotel owner.
Right.
For hotel owner, as you said, everybody's talking about the flat rate. Investment is getting longer and longer to get paid. So I think investor will be very, very cautious in terms of doing more hotels. From the perspective of the hotel operator, of course, Jakarta is a magnet by itself for business, not for leisure, for this time. So for the operator, I will see operators are still flocking to Jakarta, but then do they get proper projects? Do they get investors who are interested to do the hotels? Most investors in Jakarta, they do the hotels in their mostly developers because they are doing a multi development, with malls and blah blah blah, and with the hotel. So hotels becoming an iconic people mover of attention to the project. Other than that, individual owner, I would see they're very cautious. I'm not saying they're not going to build, but very cautious. That's my point.
Okay, Shirley.
Yeah,
Now,
I will
from your perspective, you're coming from the owning company side. There are so many hotel operators in this room. Which city, for example, do you think you may consider going into, for the existing? Jakarta, Surabaya, Bandung, that kind of thing?
Yeah, we are opening a hotel in Jakarta, St. Regis, in 2021. But I think your earlier question is very interesting. So if you underwrite a development in Jakarta where the land cost is extremely high, all our investment, whether it's at St. Regis or Four Seasons, are both mixed use. We don't do any project with less than 17% IRR. Both of them are underwrite with far higher IRR, that is. But it's just that you have to be really, really smart. But I think it's the same thing that you have to, and then obviously if you are very smart with a very high IRR, the bank will finance you, and you need to have the track record to make it work. Just very short answer to whether is there necessary for more destinations in Indonesia, I'm with Raj on that. So Indonesia has a disproportionate less tourist arrival than Southeast Asia country. I think Thailand is about 35 over million, Indonesia has less than 20. And then Italy is 56 million. And so the question is, how could you capture at least a fair share in tourist arrival? Is it going to be Jakarta and Bali, or is it other place? So the answer is quite simple. You have to go to other places. Right. The question is, if you are going to other places, can you be sporadic and let the tourism happen on its own, or you need to be strategic about it to coordinate policy, create destination identity for tourism authority like Pak Hiram Shah to work with private sector, to work with airport and make everything happen, and infrastructure development. You have to do it strategically. I mean, Maldives is 1.8 million tourist arrival with close to about 100 hotels. It was done strategically. Kingdom, I think MBS is doing a big one in Red Sea. A lot of people are talking about it. It's done very strategically. It's only efforts that's done strategically can have that catalytic movement to really kick off. Bali in 20 years ago was kicked off by Nusa Dua. So I think that I'm still pro the approach of being very strategic in its approach on tourism development, because Indonesia really needs a lot more job. And then if the economy is growing more than your 5% now, we have been 5% for don't know donkey years, and if we go to 8 or 9, then obviously the Jakarta hotel will do a lot better, because the business demand would then definitely increase, and then even with supply coming up, you can still, tourism is always a laggard to the economic growth of a country. So that's how I see it for the tourism development.
John, if I ask you, I want to invest in Jogja or Bali or Bandung for that matter, what would be your reaction?
It's very difficult at the moment. I mean, you have a place like Jogja, for example, it's got 800 hotels. For a city like Jogja, which is getting popular. But I mean, my country, Ireland, for example, has only 800 hotels. We get 10 million tourists a year, so just number-wise, it just doesn't work out, statistically. So, but I mean, I just one of the things I wanted to say to investors, if they were here on the government, if there was anybody here, was Myanmar were very successful in pushing the business out from Yangon by bringing in some tax breaks for
Okay, I guess we have run out of time, and there are a few questions. My suggestion is better raise the question during the break, because we have other speakers who come on stage. And for better or for worse, that's the discussion for today. We talk about the new destinations, and we also talk about the existing ones. Actually, there are several other things which I would like to throw, but just as a last comment, maybe I would like to appeal to the host if we can get another, just maybe 5, 10 minutes. I'm personally very much intrigued by this so-called new startup business catering for the so-called digital nomad travelers. Why? Because until I came across this particular story, I went to myself and then yeah, but then there's this company. They managed to raise $100 million, and with a valuation, post-money valuation of $850 million. So now, if something like that happens, surely the big guns, whether it is the Marriott or the Archipelago and Panorama and Rajawali, surely I would like to give, please, I give you 2 minutes each to make a comment how you see this will fit into the overall future in the tourism industry. They talk about 110,000 rooms, with this $850 million valuation. Raj?
So I think digital is definitely revolutionizing the world, not only in tourism but in every other space, right? And from our perspective, there is that ton of opportunity there. Marriott ourselves have launched luxury homes and villas in US, Europe, and other markets because there is genuinely an opportunity. But let's keep in mind, this is not a new concept. For generations, people have been traveling and using other people's homes, right? They've just created a platform to bring everybody together. Similarly, the business that we do every day, how the bookings come to us, are shifting to more digital channels. So it really is about adapting to a new way of life. And I think as long as companies continue to innovate and continue to adapt, that's where the success would be. In the long run, for me, what will stand clear is the companies that are able to generate profit, right? Today, there is incredible amount of hype against a number of these organizations that are valued at 10 billion, 20 billion, maybe 100 billion, but they're actually month on month losing millions, if not billions of dollars, right? Eventually that funding will come to a halt, and then we'll see how things work out. So sustainability in the long run remains critical.
Agree. Pak Budi?
You must
Comment,
be
please.
you must be referring to the 100 million
Yeah,
company,
yeah.
right? Oyo, right?
Yeah. No.
No?
No,
This
Oyo
is Oyo is different.
bigger.
Oh, that's different.
This one
Okay.
is,
No, just trying to be clear.
co-living, co-working.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
Okay. No, I think regarding the digital things, I think that is the destination. We are now living in a digital world, and then I agree with Raj. It has to be sustainable, and it has to be unique. I think we have to offer a unique proposition, unique products to our customers. Yes, there are big market out there. We have to have, from Panorama's point of view, we are coming from a tourism company. We're not only doing hotels, where we do inbound, we do B2B, we do bed banks, we do transportation. That's how we create this value in order for us to be able to, let's say, to compete and to exist in the real market. So, but digital, agree. IT is agree. It's a new way of doing things.
So I'm also a big believer of tech. On top of Rajawali Property Group, I headed the tech as well as the healthcare investment for the group. So I've studied model all the way from WeWork to Airbnb and some of the Indonesian startups like iFlix, and having a recent discussion with SoftBank on how this digital space is moving. Generally, the digital disruption will continue. So the tech will continue to disrupt traditional industry, and we are only seeing the beginning of the iceberg. One of the biggest revolution that will change the hospitality world is actually AI. In the future of how services will be conducted, if it's going to be done a lot more efficiently and more intelligently, which is what we wanted. And like, for example, I've always been asking, so concierge, how many feedback loop of what people like and doesn't like is being captured in hotel? Very little. You have order, but you don't have a feedback. But a tech company can tell you what your people like, doesn't like, where they shop, how much they put in money, right? I mean, so that there are many areas that's very ripe for disruption. So tech is a big enabler in that sense. But in terms of you see the Lyft and the Uber share price tank recently. Generally, tech business model believe in winner take most or winner take all. So that's why they will keep sacrificing profit in order to gain market share, in hope that at one point, then they take every single one out. And that's how they make money. So that premises is yet to be tested. And I think as long as the company goes over IPO, the market tells a different story. And how they could, so the business model is untested, but tech disruption is proven, and tech is going to change continually the way of how they renegotiate business with owners or operators. Like, for example, Priceline, Booking.com, TripAdvisor, they have already demonstrated, and C-Trip. They are not disrupting, but it actually generates a need for us to consider their presence and think about how we can work with them, because they do capture a big base of consumer that is directly interacting with them.
John, last words.
You're talking about probably the last minute. You're talking about the shared office space.
Office space.
Concept, so.
Co-living.
Well, one of the things in...
the numbers are
Yeah,
big.
the numbers are huge. I mean, yeah, they did get $100 million put into the company. And the future of it is huge. I mean, as regards hotels, how it affects us, I mean, we already have some locations where we have shared office space built into the hotel, or it's actually one of the ones is a luxury hostel in Kumang. And funnily enough, I only found out last night there was actually Paharamsia's son who actually runs that company. They have 15 locations where they have shared office space. But, you know, when you're talking about the way hotels are designed, and especially the lobby space, making most use of them, making them multifunctional. You know, a coffee shop can be a working space when it's not being used and so forth, or your meeting rooms can be used for shorter times, not just a day, but they can be booked by the half hour, by the hour, and so forth with apps. For us in Indonesia, especially, more and more people here are working less and less in the office. More people are working digitally. And now that you have, you know, proper and not too expensive systems where you can track, you know, you can have task manager apps, you can have, you know, ticketing systems, so work can be distributed to people in the office. But now that people don't have to be in the office, you could have 50 people spread across Indonesia working on different tasks that come in. As long as you can track the tasks and have a good ticketing system, then you can really get into the concept. I mean, people talked about it before, but now you can really get into, you know, paying people for the work that they do and what they produce instead of just the time that they're working in the office. You don't have to really track people in the office anymore. As long as they're producing the work, it doesn't really matter if they're in the office anymore or where the hell they're working. So, I mean, even, you know, for us, I mean, because of places like Jakarta, when we're going back to finding real talent, proper talent, to be able to get them, to attract them to work in places like Jogja, or especially in places like Jakarta where a lot of the big firms are. People won't work in Jakarta. The salaries are too high, and people don't want to work there because it's got the worst pollution in the world. It's got the worst traffic in the world. So you need to get into a thing where, okay, you work from home 2 days a week, you know, using the task manager or a tracking system or the ticketing system and so forth. You know, in this way you can help people get into there. But, you know, in hotels as well, you'll see a lot more multifunctional space, a lot more hotels where they actually build in shared office space and stuff like that, yeah. So for us, there's a good future in it.
Okay. So with that, thank you very much for the attention.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Ramesh.